Yo, my G, what you saying?
My G.
What up, and greetings! So about a week and a half ago, there's been changes announced to Small Time Buccaneer and to Spirit Claws. Small Time going to 1 health, Spirit Claws going to 2 mana. And because only 2 cards have been changed, I didn't want to really make a separate video on it. But yesterday we got a whole bunch of news in regards to standard rotation and what's going to happen when League of Explorers, Grand Tournament and Blackrock Mountains are going to leave standard. So they've chosen some cards to be rotating from the classic set to wild set, and I'm gonna talk about that in a bit, but I also want to talk about the changes that they will be making when the year of the Mammoth starts. So there was discussion whether it's gonna be 2 adventures and an expansion, which would make sense in regards to their previous schedule. If it's gonna be 2 expansions, 1 adventure. Forget all of that. It's actually going to be 3 full expansions, and in my opinion that's really good, because if we had 3 sets to leave now and only it to be replaced by 1 adventures, which is about 40 cards, the card pool would become so small that the decks that are currently prevalent would only become even more prevalent, because people would have less tools to create more decks and new archetypes and whatnot. This will make sense for them in the long run, because adventures was a kind of a thing when Naxxramas came along, that they said that they're gonna put out adventure, maybe 2 free adventures, and then they're gonna see if the model is relevant to their game or not. Since then they've just been putting out adventures, never updating the model, and I think that right now it's kind of outdated, or not updated, but 40 cards is not enough. At the speed at which people consume Hearthstone at the moment, and getting bored of the meta, 1 month, 2 months into the meta, giving them 40 cards, which are also released, on a week-to-week schedule. So actually you only have, the cards there for 3 months after that, but another month when they're being released. It's not viable for the game right now. It might be viable for the future, maybe just releasing it on the side as an extra, but I don't think that it's viable for players to get their experience enhanced by a mere 40 cards, especially now when we got 3 sets leaving. We need a whole bunch of cards to replace the ones that we have. And in regards to the 6 cards that are going from standard or from the classic set and moving so they can only be played in wild, I've seen a lot of people, making posts that they're gonna quit the game and etc, and Blizzard keeps changing it, and they said that classic set it's gonna stick there and they're not gonna touch it. They haven't said exactly that yet. They've said that they will make those changes, and they nerfed a whole bunch of cards when standard was first introduced, and they said that they're gonna watch what the situation is and gonna make future changes if needed. And I've been playing since beta, and I remember Ragnaros and Sylvanas being played consistently and coming back and leaving, standard and some decks since that time. There were times where the meta was so fast for Sylvanas or Ragnaros to be played, but then they came back. Like right now, they're in Reno decks, they're in, Ragnaros in mid-range decks, etc, etc. If you need a good drop, boom, slap a Ragnaros in there, no questions. If you need a 6-drop, there's only 1 6-drop, apart from specific cards like Cairn in the soft decks, blah blah blah, but Sylvanas is the 6-drop, when you want a 5-drop, and that's the problem. Like, Azure Drake is a really solid card. The problem is when Azure Drake is being played in Priest, and in Mage, and in Rogue, and in Druid, and in a whole bunch of decks, and it's always there as 2 of, with that spell power. I'm not saying don't have a solid 5-drop, but it shouldn't be expansion after expansion after expansion. You put in 2 Azure Drakes to start your deck, no matter what deck you're starting, and it's the same situation as we had before with Piloted Shredder, which was the only 4-drop when GVG was still around and was being played in the standard or on the main ladder. They put out so many 4-drops and no one gave a shit about them, because everyone was playing Shredder, because Shredder was so overpowered and so consistent in the metagame that there was no need. And that's really hurtful for the game. I have most of these cards that are rotating out, maybe apart from Ice Lances, in Golden. And Sylvanas, and maybe even Rag, are probably one of my favorite cards in the game. You know, not because it's a whole bunch of RNG, which it is. You know, Sylvanas steals a random minion you can sort of affect when you play it. The opponent can sort of affect what minions it steals, but it's random. Ragnaros also. It's random, and a lot of wins in recent tournaments have been decided by a rag hit. You know, people don't see that the entire game that is before that, and what decision has been made, and you know how the game has played out, and that both players have played to the best of their ability or not, whatever. They can only see the 1 out of 3 rag has won the game, and they're like, ah, yeah, this is RNG, you know, bullshit. You know, not really. They're my favorite cards in the game because of the flavor, because they're really, really unique effects. You know, Sylvanas was nerfed very early in the game from 5 mana to 6 mana, and she's still consistently played across the board. The same happened with Gadgets and Auctioneer, which I was actually kind of surprised that it wasn't among one of the cards that was rotating out. They decided to rotate out Conceal, because Conceal is very problematic, to be honest, and not just in combination with Gadgetzan, but in combination with Questing Adventurer and stuff like that. And they really want to, if not to kill the decks, make it harder for them, you know, make it harder for decks like Miracle Rogue, make it harder for decks like Freeze Mage to be coming back again and again, and for the people to be trying out something new, because that's the main point, you know. And that's why Hearthstone feels a bit stale, because Freeze Mage was here from the beginning of time, Miracle Rogue was here from the beginning of time, and they're still using the same cards. You know, I'm kind of surprised that they haven't chosen Ice Block instead of Ice Lands to nerf. Maybe they were thinking if they nerfed Ice Block, if they moved it too wild, you know, the whole archetype would be dead. But for me, Freeze Mage is an archetype that isn't really being played now anyway, and even though it's one of the go-to, you know, sort of control-y archetypes for mages, it doesn't mean that it has to be here forever. People can still play it in Wild, and yeah, I think that these changes make a lot of sense. I know that a lot of people will be like, ah, you just lick Blizzard's ass, but I do actually believe that them making more frequent changes, despite the fact that, you know, I love these cards and I don't want to see them go, but at the, you know, I do understand that in the big picture of making Hearthstone a better experience for old players and new players, those changes are needed. And I'm praising them for actually making those changes and announcing, you know, changes in quick consequence. You know, they've just said that Small Time Buccaneer will go to 1 health, and a week later they gave us those changes. And Team 5 needs to communicate more, and they need to make more frequent updates. Otherwise they're gonna kill Hearthstone, you know, as it is, and they're gonna lose a whole lot of players. So them making those changes is necessary, and it's good for the game. I do believe, you know, that these changes are positive. If I didn't believe that they're positive, then I would say that I don't believe they're positive. But at the moment, I'm happy what they're doing with the game. Let's see, you know, when the new expansion hits, when all the BRM, TGT, and LOE leave standard, the situation might be completely different, and I might make a video just ranting about the state of the metagame and the state of Hearthstone. But for now, thank you, Blizzard. Thank you for making these changes. I want to see what you guys think about those changes as well. Please let me know in the comment section below. Let's see what Year of the Mammoth brings us. Let's see if it's going to be better or worse, or pretty much the same. It might just be exactly the same. Yeah, and enjoy your dust refund on that golden Ragnaros on deck today. Alright, I'll see you later. Bye and take care.